Shia here from Austin, um, inspired to reveal an analogy that I think really well illustrates some of the things going on between divine masculine and feminine in the dating world and in general. And I thought I would share that piece because it's very powerful and it's kind of edgy and can be triggering, but it's also just like really cuts through, I guess, the BS, so to speak, so we can see things for what they are. Because sometimes when we live in the matrix or we're so close to it, when we live in our culture, we forget sometimes how ridiculous certain things are. And we're just trying to make the best of it and work with it as best we can. When sometimes I think we just need to say, no, stop. This isn't. This isn't happening. This isn't going to work. We need to find other ways to be with each other. So, Um, I have two analogies actually, one for the feminine, one for the masculine. I'm going to start off with uh, the masculine one because this is a newer one that came through that I, came into my awareness to illustrate it this way. So it both of these analogies are kind of offensive because it helps us see it for what it is. So we're like, oh my God, that's really something. And yet we're doing it to each other all the time, unfortunately, just from reports from my clients and my friends and family and community. And so it would feel pretty absurd and probably offensive, men, if women came up to you and said something like, um, I'm really attracted to your money and I would love for you just to give me some money. And I'm not really going to necessarily give you anything in return. I don't want to be your girlfriend necessarily. In fact, I might even ghost you afterwards. But I am just find your money so sexy. And will you just give me some money? I know you don't know me yet or anything, but I would really like to experience what your money can do for me and have that kind of elation that comes from being able to buy something that I otherwise wouldn't be able to buy. So, men, this doesn't really happen. I know there's probably women out there who are manipulative around finances and who knows? I think we've all probably been taken advantage of financially. But in general, that is not going to work as a pickup line, or it's not attractive. So you wouldn't want a woman coming up to you and saying that to you, uh, most likely, right? Okay, so if we were to replace the word money with sex, that's the version that men tend to dish out for the women. So I'm going to walk through that one and see how that feels for you. Because it's kind of illustrates it well of what we're dealing with here. So women, if a man were to come up to you and say, I'm just so attracted to you. I just would love to, have a hookup. And yeah, I'll probably ghost you tomorrow, and I know you don't know me, but do you mind just being a prostitute for me so I can experience you and just have the high of like getting off and being able to use your beautiful body for um, my own joy? And, I don't really want to be your boyfriend. And, I don't necessarily going to give you anything back. And I may not even want to give you an orgasm, but I just find you so sexy. And I would love to experience you that way. Because you might as well be saying that, men, half the time. You hook up men, you know who you are, and I would imagine that all men have done this at least once, especially when you're younger. But it's become part of this culture that I think, I don't know if it's the X generation, the millennials, where it seems like to become this new norm. But my point being, man, you don't want women doing that to you about your money. Just like women don't want you doing that to them about sex. Both are using the other person, both are selfish examples, both are not even trying to get to know the person. So it's not a genuine attraction. It's very superficial, and it's really about what you can get or take as opposed to like having a win-win situation. So I'm just invoking and activating that way of being is becoming outdated fast. It's not working. It's not working for women for sure. And that's why a lot of them are just like not even playing the game anymore. They're just sick of it. And it's offensive, right? Both examples are offensive. Women don't want to be asked to be prostitutes and hook up just so you can abandon them and take their greatest gift just for your own enjoyment. And then, especially if you're not even making sure she's taken care of first, which some of you do, but there's no way you can really learn her body in one night. And, if you're lucky, you have more of a connection. But most of the time, women are coming away from those experiences hurting and not feeling good about it. And there's this weird dichotomy where women are like expected to put out like almost immediately. It's just so weird. And yet then they're called a slut if they do. So they can't win either way. And they're so in the culture half the time that they are just trying to work with it as best they can, even though it's not working for them. And it's, actually creating scars and trauma. And I, as a someone who researches and works in this field for years, and watching what's happening in our culture, I'm sad to say that when I sit with women's groups, there's a certain percentage of them that have so much trauma from sexual abuse, whether it was in childhood or in dating, this includes date rape and outright rape, and like, and then just subtler versions of it, of just feeling used by men in the bedroom, to the point where like there's actually these like anxiety attacks that they get, and their body shuts down, and they have these full on like, yeah, anxiety attacks and stuff like that around anything sexual. And it's like becoming this epidemic a little bit for women, and it made me so sad to witness this. And so that's why I'm educating about it, because I think that illustration probably shares, really well the concept I'm trying to bring across. Because sometimes men will think nothing of a one night stand or a hookup. And I just want to challenge you and invite you to see it for what it is. And that's why I did the other illustration where I replaced sex with money, because you wouldn't want women just using you for money and just telling you to give them money and not give you anything back. I mean, it sounds so absurd when I say it just directly outright that way, but it does illustrate the point around, you're asking too much up front. And unfortunately, I feel like even in my own dating, I mean, I'm experiencing this too, where there's just this naiveness or kind of ignorance or something like, oh, of course, why wouldn't you want to just jump in bed with me kind of attitude. And I'm like, well, I don't know you. I don't even know if we have a connection. We've never even talked on the phone yet. You haven't even taken me out on a date. Like, come on. And so it's just this unfortunate, weird scenario where that I'm observing and going, gosh, like I'm literally being asked to be a prostitute, only it's with a stranger, whereas this is supposed to be dating where I'm getting to know the person. And basically being asked to be a prostitute by having sex with my date, but I'm not getting paid for it. So it's even worse than prostitution. It's just downright abusive trauma. And women may not want to admit it because they're in the matrix and they don't see it for what it is, and they're just trying to work with it as best they can. And don't be surprised if women rise up and just say enough already. Like, and then you wonder why women aren't interested in sex, or have all these barriers, or have fear or anxiety around it, or whatever. It's like, no wonder. I mean, this is like generations and even millennia of abuse in this way, being used and not properly um, compensated in a way, by being provided for, being honored and worshiped and accepted and given to, and, all the things that women deserve. That's no way to treat the goddess. So, and I know that when I shared this with women, they were like, well, I would never do that to a man. And that's, very kind of selfish and all that. And at the same time, this comment came up around, but if he has no money, or no like good career, there, it just feels like there's no future for us. And that, and the women were saying, and then it feels like all the financial obligations fall on her. So that, doesn't work. That's a totally different concept. I'm really just using the illustration to kind of show you how offensive it is, because that's kind of what it would feel like to you men if a woman were to do that to you. It's like, just give me money, and like, I'm not going to really give you anything back, other than that, you get to have the enjoyment of giving me money and making me happy, and that's it. Oh my. It would be nice if the tables would turn that way for a bit, because I tell you, women deserve it. It's been so skewed in the other direction for so long that, we're just having some serious issues here between masculine and feminine being able to partner up, being able to find a real true mate. And, guys, I think the porn industry is starting to, creating guys who just objectify us and just see us as though we're only good for sex. And that's like the number one priority of what women offer. And there's so much more. So let's not forget that, I think really we're looking for the same thing. We're wanting connection and intimacy, companionship. We want a partner to do life with, to make memories with, to travel with, to build a life with, to build a home with, maybe build a family with, to have a best friend and someone to do life with. That's the most important thing. And of course, your sexual fulfillment is a natural progression of that, and it's a natural outcome when you're truly matched correctly and you're really, actually in love. And because, it almost feels like there's this weird cultural thing, like where it's almost like arranged marriages, only you two are doing the arranging with each other. Like, oh, you look good on paper, you like match all the boxes, even though I'm not in love with you, I'm going to settle for you because it just seems to be is it's harder to find like the true real thing. And I don't know, that's sad too, because it doesn't usually last, as our statistics show. You got to be in there for the long haul, and it needs to be a deeper connection than just, oh, she's hot, or oh, he has a lot of money, because it'll never last. You'll get bored with it, you'll want more. So it has to be the real deal. Otherwise, just don't get married. There doesn't need to be this pressure to marry. That's an old, outdated concept. And I think honestly, we would be better off half the time if we didn't marry and didn't live in the same house. It just keeps the relationship fresh. There's a lot more fluidity to it. We get to miss each other and then come back together and be fully present because we're excited to see each other. These are just suggestions of ways that it could look in an alternative way, because there is something about the day in and day out sometimes that can be really hard on couples. And it's so easy to start taking each other for granted. And, there's pros and cons to every choice, right? But these are just options to consider. Because I know for myself, being a sovereign woman, independent most of my life, having relationships along the way, and then big gaps where I'm, single, I've just noticed that, if we have our own homes, I guess the plus side of it is you never know how long it's going to last. And then if you break up, it's not like your whole world gets turned upside down because you still have your own home, your own business, and so forth. And it just keeps it fresh. And I also can see me enjoying building a home with someone too. And, maybe making sure we both have our own rooms so that we have a sense of identity that doesn't get all enmeshed with each other, perhaps, or at least a space in the house that we can each call our own, that has our own private things or office or creative expression room or whatever it is. It helps if you have a bigger home, right? Because then you can be on separate ends of the house and then come together when you want to or whatever. Um, Because, yeah, it gets intense, doesn't it, when you live with someone, especially in small quarters. And many of you know that after going through COVID. There was a lot of relationships that didn't make it through that test. And, marriage itself, I know that it's got a lot of religious ties, but honestly, I remember listening to this tape back in the day when there was tapes, I believe, where it was these big name people like Eckhart Tolle, or I remember that um, one of the big gurus was on there, and then like Tony Robbins. I mean, there was all these big name people, and they were talking about how the marriage license process, legal process, kind of kills the relationship in some way. And my jaw dropped, and I was really surprised to hear that. It was very innovative and edgy to be talking about how I think the powers that be kind of initiated this concept because then you feel trapped immediately. It's like, oh, we're bound together by this legal agreement. We can't leave. And now I can never be with anybody else the rest of my life, which sounds crazy on some level, to only have one person for the rest of your life that you get to be, sexual with. Unless you truly, are well matched and choose that. For most people, that's a little bit asking a lot, right? And so, anyway, I remember them talking about how, yeah, there's something about that act of signing that paper that it kind of takes the magic out of it because it means the free will choice to make decisions around intimacy have just been taken away for the rest of your life until you divorce. And so anyway, I know a lot of you relate to this, and it sounds so weird to say it on some level because I grew up Christian and stuff, but I think that these are some of the things we need to look at and start doing things differently so that it feels like we're all sovereign, we're all at choice, we make our agreements, and get back on track to having true connection. None of this arranged stuff because it doesn't last. It's really just using someone for a period of time, and then it's just so tragic when it ends and hearts are broken or whatever. It's not pretty. And I got so many offers through the years growing up, and I knew that I would want out within a few years, and so and I just wasn't in love. I knew that, and so it's just, I guess a lot of people go into marriage probably pretty naively, just like they have a child pretty naively as well in our culture. They always see kind of the la la side of it, the pros side of it, and they almost completely don't even see the negative side or the underbelly of it or the shadow side of both things, and just like there are with every choice. And there's sort of this, I think, fantasy vibe, especially in America, thanks to Disney and fairy tales, who knows. But there's of what marriage and or having a child just seems like, oh, such a wonderful thing. And then you get in there and you're like, what the hell was I thinking? And I've noticed lately that, when I say put on a rom-com or some kind of romantic movie on, I end up turning it off some, like, certain percentage of the time now, because I just can't wade through all the sexist remarks. And I think they're supposed to be funny, but I, as a woman, don't find them funny because women end up being the brunt of those jokes, and it's actually not really funny anymore. And so I was last night was a good example. I turned on, I think it's called Life as We Know It, and it had Heidi Heigl, or anyway, her last name's Heigl. And just the opening scene, I was just offended right off the bat, where she's dressed up to the nines, he's an hour late, he's scruffy looking, he comes with a motorcycle, and she can't even, sit on the motorcycle with her hot dress and heels. And, so he totally didn't communicate well. And so she's having to drive. And then he takes a call, about a date later that night. And then and she calls him on it. And then he even admits, well, it's Saturday night. I just wanted to have fun. And I thought if anything else, we could maybe have a hookup. And it like, I was just like, oh my God, no wonder our society operates this way. We have this stupid media feeding it to us as if it's like normal. And it was just so, it's such an insult to a woman's intelligence to watch that kind of BS. It's kind of like we're over it. And there's like I can catch almost any movie because there's always usually one romantic scene typically in a movie, or some kind of chemistry going on. But then the way they depict it and how it happens and how it plays out and what's said, I'm just like, oh God, this is so sexist. This is so dishonoring of women. And here we are watching this stuff, and it starts to program us, like that is somehow normal, and it's just not. I'm offended by it, and I'm just ready for something conscious. So just be aware of that. That's the unfortunate thing about raising, children with modern day movies, especially if you're not there to discuss these things with them so they could see through it. Because otherwise, it's like this subtle programming where she just thinks, oh, that's what happens out there in the world. And that's just as good as you get. That's all you get. And it's just not healthy. And I can see why our culture, our dating culture, is the way it is because of all that. And so we need to turn it around, because ultimately we want the same thing. We're wanting that intimacy and that companionship, and we want to feel safe and be in a fulfilling, thriving relationship. And so we got to be able to see through these matrix concepts, old programs that don't serve us anymore. Stop using each other. um, yeah, start honoring each other for who we really are, and instead of this surface stuff. All right, tribe, I love you. I hope that was helpful, and I hope that opened your eyes, to not be going down that path. If you are not truly interested in the person that you're dating and you don't truly enjoy their company, you don't need to be there. You're not meant to be there. Don't pursue it. Don't lead them on. It just is what it is. You either have a connection or you don't. And the connection needs to go deeper than appearance. You need to have a heart connection. Something that, goes deeper so that it's more sustainable and long lasting. Otherwise, it's not going to last. And it won't stand the test of time. And then you'll just kind of have fun and then want out in a couple of years. So, but, we all have to be accountable to ourselves and Mother, Father, God. And so, if you're doing hookups and you're leaving a trail of tears, then you're going to get that right back. So watch out, because that is not a fun one to go through. And if you're using people, then you will find yourself getting used, and you'll have to go through the same thing just so that you learn that lesson that doesn't work. So let's raise the bar here. Let's step up to the plate. I know that there's a lot of us who are on a certain trajectory of ascending and evolving and, becoming a lot more spiritual and conscious and better communicators and tantric and all that. And if you're not on that path, you're going to get left behind. So this is your warning. You're not going to be able to compete at a certain point if you're going to be lazy about it. So, this is the kind of stuff that separates the men from the boys. And guys, you need to be giving her as much pleasure as you're receiving. Otherwise, she's going to end up with the one who will give her that. So I invoke and activate that this goes deep as a seed, will, and blossom in your being so that you are inspired to be a better lover and really show up and step up to the plate and want to really attract the divine feminine, because she deserves the best of you. She deserves to have a man that's amazing as she is. And you deserve to have a woman that's as amazing as you are. And we have some work to do here, but let's have fun getting there together. Aloha.